Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda,
And I'm Jake Bennett.
and welcome to episode 111 of the North Meet South web podcast.
Jenna, Michael, to thank our sponsors. Today we would like to thank the Oscar Mayer Wiener Company. They have some amazing bologna. I don't know. So, Michael, is bologna a thing in Australia? Do you guys do bologna?
I think
Do you not know what bologna is?
I do know what bologna is. I was actually thinking about it earlier today, which is funny that you should mention that because
I feel like
you
I
say
grew up on this
bologna,
stuff.
but it's not spelt bologna. It's not spelt how it
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah. No, I don't even know how to. I couldn't spell it for you if you asked me to.
No.
Bologny. Bologna.
Yeah, it's spelt with
Is
a
that what it is?
G. Yeah, bologna. Bologna sausage. It's a
Yeah.
Pennsylvania Dutch meat. So we have it. We call it, I guess, Devon. So it's derived from mortadella. So I think, we call it Fritz.
Interesting. Fritz.
Yeah, so
So,
we call it
like,
Fritz.
I
It's Devon. It's I think there's another name for it, but yeah, we call it what you call bologna. We call Fritz. It's just
Fritz. Okay.
mystery pork meat.
It's what it is, right? It's actually Bologna.
Mm-hmm.
Bologna. Bologna.
Yeah.
That's how we spell it. So yeah, but it's Oscar Mayer bologna. So I feel like it's funny, but it is like this mystery meat sort of stuff, right? But I feel like I grew up on this stuff. Like if I was hungry, we were in between meals or whatever, I would literally just go like get a frying pan out and I'd put bologna on it and I'd fry some bologna.
Yeah.
Just good stuff. But like my wife is like, no, this is not good food. We will not eat bologna. And so typically we don't, but like it is fantastic. I love bologna. I love me some bologna.
It was always good. So you get it comes in like a stick, right? It's like,
well,
heavy.
You know what? For us, it doesn't. No, for me, it doesn't. Here, let me show you kind of what I'm. No, like we buy like it's a round. It's like a big round. It's like a pack like this. It's round and then they're like sliced. It's like if you had like a massive sausage and like sliced it like that.
Right.
I'll send you a picture.
Do you get like dog meat in like those sausages and it's twisted at the ends and it's got like a little metal tie on the end of it? Do you get dog food like that? Okay. So you can buy dog food like that. So the Fritz that we have comes in a packet like that. And it looks like, obviously it's kept far away from the dog food. So you can't
just to be sure that nobody picks it up on accident.
You can't mix up. But so you get it in this thing, and then you slice it into like, I don't know. I guess you'd say maybe this big, like half a centimeter.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Right.
Thick,
I know what you're talking about.
And then you cut like diagonally opposite, just little lines, so it doesn't curl when it fries.
Oh, that's the trick. I didn't know that was the trick. So because mine always curls up like that. Yeah.
So it curls. So you do it like that, so it doesn't curl up when you fry it, and then you put that on a bit of bread, bit of sauce. You have a Fritz and sauce sandwich.
Fritz and sauce. Hey, we're gonna have to try this. So we do like we have maybe what you're doing sounds more like a kielbasa sausage. Like anyway, just sausage.
It's funny you say that because we've had this like Omicron surge here. We've been doing online shopping, so we order online, they deliver it here.
Sure.
I've got two different cards, like bank cards that I use, debit cards, and I often mix up either the expiry date or the CVV. And so we were supposed to have food delivered yesterday, but we got a message on Friday night saying your payment bounced. Like, please go and reorder this and you can have it delivered again later. So as it turned out, I put the wrong expiry date in. Right number, but the expiry date for the other card. So we did a reorder, but they're like, you can come and click and collect from a different store, or you can have it delivered, but you have to wait until Monday. And I'm like, oh, there's some stuff in there we need, so we'll come and get it. So I went to this other store, and they have in there a butcher, like a Polish butcher, that I used to go to growing up as a kid. We'd go on Saturday morning and the line would be out the door. Same kind of franchise, but different location. And I'm like, well, it'd be rude not to go in there. So I went and I got some Polish cabana. I got some Polish sausage. I got some fresh. They don't call it Schwarzwälder ham anymore. They call it Black Forest, which is like, it's the English translation.
Black Forest, that's what they would call it here. Yeah.
It's the English, but like when I was growing up, it was Schwarzwälder, because that's what it was.
Schwarzwälder.
It was
German
ham. So did that and got some pierogi. So it was great. I
Yes,
was in my
sir.
element.
That is some good stuff right there. Is
And
that
I came
Russian?
home.
Piragi?
There are Russian pierogi. They had heaps of like like it's just the filling. They're essentially like the same thing. It's just what you put in there. So the Polish one you'd have, mushroom and sauerkraut, or you would have sour
Because
cherry
you
as
are
a
Polish,
sweet
aren't
one.
you?
Hmm. Yeah,
You are indeed. We have a huge Polish population where I
in
used to live in
Chicago.
Michigan.
In Chicago,
Well,
I
in
think there's a
Chicago
lot of
too. That's
Polish
true.
people.
Yep.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yep. So we actually, my grandma was Russian, immigrated to Canada, and then came to the United States. And so pierogi, we ate that at her house on
Yeah.
a pretty regular basis, but just
Yeah.
potato pierogi.
Yeah, potato and cheese
Yep.
is a
Good
thing.
stuff, man. Good stuff.
So and it's a bit of effort to make them, but if you can just buy them, like I won't go out of my way to get them, but if I see them somewhere, I gotta buy them. And then I got some chili cheese Kransky. So I got all of that yesterday. I like the
Oh man,
cabana,
you got the goods, man.
Polish cabana. I'll just walk around, just eat that as is. Polish sausage, kind of like the Fritz. You cut it. You have to peel the skin off of it because it doesn't. It's not very nice.
It's like a casing.
It's
Yeah,
like
sure.
it's a casing, so it's not very nice to once it's cooked. It gets a bit tough. So you cut that, you slice that. Same thing in the fry pan. I was going to do that for breakfast this morning, like fried Polish sausage pieces, scrambled eggs.
Man, and now I'm
Delicious.
getting hungry.
But we think Liv is teething, and she's normally pretty good with teething. Normally we won't know, like we'll just be like, oh, you've got another tooth. But yesterday
Sure.
and today, she's like woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then not gone back to sleep until around 5.
Mm,
So
that's brutal.
we went to bed quite late on Friday night, and so then went to bed at midnight, woke up at 3, was awake for 2 hours, and then we're up again at like 8 yesterday. And so last night I went to bed early, 10:30. I finished watching the second to last episode of Ozark, and then I just rolled over and went to sleep. Re got the new Pokemon game, so she's still up till midnight playing
Ooh,
Pokemon.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So 3 o'clock rolls around, Liv wakes up. 2 hours later, we're back to sleep. Fortunately, they both slept. Both kids slept until 9 this morning. So we had a bit of a sleep in, but we had to go and see Ree's family this morning at 10:30. So we're like, woke up at 9:15. We're running around. Disaster. So
Oh
I missed
my.
out.
Yes.
I was like longing for this Polish sausage and scrambled egg that I
And
had
you
missed
just
out on.
ran out of time. No time.
So I had
I get that.
ham. I had the ham sandwich on the ham, cheese, tomato, bit of horseradish cream on the hot dog rolls that I bought yesterday. And then I think I'll have the Polish sausage and scrambled eggs for tea. And then I have to go for a 6K run.
There you go. Ooh, boy. Eesh. Boy. Yeah. Nope. Not doing that. I've been running
hot.
a lot on Sunday nights. We do a Sunday night basketball guys thing now,
Mhm.
and that's really fun. I've been running a decent amount, and I don't know if I'm running that much though. Maybe. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Hey, that was a pretty big tangent we took there, thanking our sponsors. Who are our actual sponsors, Michael?
We've got
Is it Work Vivo, Joe Lennon?
Work Vivo, Joe Lennon, workvivo.com.
Yep, indeed.
And Lars. I think his name is Lars. I'm sorry. Makeable.dk.
Yeah, that's right.
Is it Lars?
Mhm,
Makeable.dk. So Makeable being a friends over in Denmark. They do the old. They're an agency, right?
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So they do the agency.
They've
thing.
had a lot more work since the last time I've looked at their website though.
New website.
Yep.
All looking very nice. And Work Vivo, it's like Facebook or Meta, Workplace by Meta, right? That's the kind of
Yes,
thing.
you got it.
Which is,
Yep, it's like that.
We've made that comparison before. At my new job, we actually use Workplace by Meta for all of our comms. So it's like Facebook, but it's locked
Really?
down just to our business. And so we
How do you like it?
chat in there. I mean, it's not a technical platform by any stretch. But I think for the kind of industry in, like everyone knows how to use Facebook. And so when you've got like this thing that looks like Facebook, that works like Facebook, but it's just for your workplace, it's kind of easy for everyone to use that. So yeah, it's fine, I suppose.
Nice. Yeah, we're
We just, I mean, I mainly use it for chat. There's the occasional announcement. They use it for like the IT help desk use it for people, like they just post in the group and that kind of thing. But
that's interesting. Yeah, we use Teams, Microsoft Teams for all of our chat stuff. So, Anyway, hey, listen, I have a couple things that I came up with while we were chatting here because we were talking about like what do we want to do. Okay, so one thing I wanted to talk about. Have I ever talked to you about privacy.com?
No, this is they do the credit cards, or is that something else?
Yes, that is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Stripe also has something like this,
Interesting.
where they do credit card issuing. The only problem is that you have to hook it up to a bank account because it's not a credit card per se, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
like you charge it up and then you pay it off.
Right,
It's
but it's for the
you have an account that you're
anonymity.
drawing from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It's for the anonymity, and it's also for the I don't want my credit card stolen and then have to redo
Yeah, you
all
just
my
cancel that
subscriptions.
number and then
Yep,
one card per
exactly.
site kind of thing, kind of like a password manager for your payments.
You got it. Exactly right. That's exactly right. So I was just curious. I don't think they have, maybe they don't have privacy.com in Australia, but the Stripe might have an interesting offering. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've come across this before. There's this one. There's another one that like I've tried to use in the past because
Yes.
there are
Hmm.
some websites that we can access via VPNs and stuff, but you still need to have like HBO Go, whichever the
Oh,
new
okay. Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
the streaming service. So I can
Yes.
get to the site and I can do the sign up thing, but without a
But it
US
won't
credit
let you.
card, I can't sign up.
Ah,
So
that's a bummer.
they get you there, but
That's
and
a
then
bummer.
these kinds of things. I think the last time I tried to sign up to privacy.com, it didn't work for me anyway. So because they need to
Yeah.
tie it to a US bank account, all that kind of stuff. With like,
Ugh. Yeah. Sorry, man. That sucks.
this is why
So
piracy happens.
it is. That is a big part of it for sure. I think you're absolutely right on
Australians are
that.
really bad for it. As a like, it comes up all the time. And we had former prime minister basically say, this content's not available, but if you use a VPN, you can, like you just said, go and use a VPN to access this site. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm like, okay, so I guess we'll do that.
Yep. There you go. Absolutely. So
Because we're
yeah,
not
when you
above
were
paying
saying
for
that about
stuff.
your order, I was like, oh man, like it's nice to just have these like cards I just make on one-offs and copy and paste them in there, and it's pretty handy. The other thing I thought that would be fun to actually talk about today, you and I and some other folks and a lot of other folks have been playing this game Wordle.
Wordle.
Yes, Wordle. So this is that game. If you haven't heard about it, it is you get 6 chances to guess a 5-character word. The puzzle is reset every day. You can only do it once a day. And the way that it works is it's sort of like this thing called it's an old adaptation. It's an old version of it's a new version of an old game. There's this game called Password, right, where you try and guess the order of a sequence of colored beads, and then the person who you were playing with would have to basically give you these hints to say you have one in the right place and you have one with the right color, right? And so that's basically what Wordle does. Wordle will give you hints. It will say if you get a letter that is in the 5-character word, it will highlight it yellow. And if you get a letter in the correct location, it will highlight it green. And then if you've used it and it's not in the word, it will highlight it as like a dark gray. So each guess that you have basically eliminates or reveals to you characters that are correct for that particular puzzle. And so you get 6 chances to get it right. The thing that has, what do you think, Michael? I think I read something on this. What do you think makes Wordle so novel that people are playing it all the time?
I think it's kind of like the peer pressure thing, right? You see everyone's doing it. Everyone and
Indeed.
from all parts of my, all different kinds of people that I follow, like people that I used to work with, people just broadly in the community. You just see it pop up, and I refuse to tweet about it. I've also heard that
So
like when you put all those emoji in there, it makes it like crappy for people that are using screen readers because the screen reader
I'm
will
sure
read
it
every
does.
single character, every single emoji,
Yeah.
and because it's like 5 by 6, there's 30 things that
Yeah.
it's you know gray square emoji, gray square emoji, yellow square emoji,
Yep.
gray square, and it's like people don't want to hear that. So
But
I won't tweet about it, but I still
you've hit the nail on the head though, which is that the mechanism for sharing it
it's
is
that
so
FOMO.
convenient. It's that emoji, sort of like with like previously, if you wanted to share something like this is how you play a game online and it says share your high score and it says hashtag
Yeah.
lightsaber beat saber thing. Click here to see my high score.
Yeah.
or whatever. And it's like with this, all you do, you actually get a visual representation
It's
of
straight
the
there.
entire game that the person played
Mm-hmm.
right on your screen. That is the ticket. That is the key. That is the thing that helped it spread so fast as
Mm.
people started sharing those emojis and they're like, what is this? Oh, this is
Yeah.
kind of cool. So
The
you just see those.
virality.
Yeah, exactly. The virality of it. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, we have some friends in a text thread. Matt Halfley, I'm talking to you. And this dude started messaging our whole group thread and was like, hey, have you guys heard about this game? I'm like, yes. But he started putting it in there every day. And so then
Mm.
all the other people started putting it in. And so I'm like, I don't know. I don't have the time to do this all the time necessarily, but it's just emojis. So I could just make it up. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so, because there's always this competition of like, who's going to get the answer in the shortest number of guesses? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I could get it on the second guess just putting emojis in.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I could win every day. And then I was like, you know what? There are people who want to participate in this that don't either are bad at games, TJ Miller, or just don't care to put the effort in, my
Mm-hmm.
wife. And so I should just make something that actually gives you an emoji that you can share with people that shows that you solved it, but you didn't, right? So I wrote the code for this. And all it is a sequence of, green squares, yellow squares, or white squares. So I was curious if we would talk through kind of the process for how you would do it, and then I could share my process for how I perform it, how I
Mm-hmm.
did it. So I'm just curious, like if you're thinking through it, if you're like, okay, I have to come up with a series of squares, right? 5 wide, and then however many long. And you could either say, I want to solve it in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, right? Or you could randomly choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. It doesn't matter. Um, just first blush, what's your thought process? How would you go about creating a matrix like that had those emojis?
I'd probably have a.
Talk me through your mental process here.
Well, I would first of all, I'd want to randomly set how many guesses it took. So,
Okay.
a rand 1 6.
Okay.
Throw that in a variable. Um, and then yeah, just two nested for statements, right? One for I is less than whatever that random number was,
Mm-hmm.
and then for each one of those 1 through 5 to figure out the squares.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, I mean, I suppose it depends on how complex you want it to get, because you need to track the green squares, I suppose. To say that like if in the first guess you got a green square in like position 2,
Mm-hmm.
well, you're probably 99% of the time always going to have a green square in position 2 in the next guess, right?
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
it depends on how legit you want to make it look. If you weren't going to bother with that, it'd just be like for I is less than guesses, and then for each one of those for I is less than 6, and then just pick a random, green, yellow, or grey, and then make sure that the last one is 5 greens, and then that's basically it. Like it wouldn't. Like I said, it depends on how legit you want to make it look, and if you're wanting to make it look
Right.
like a legit guess, then you'd probably want to make sure that the green squares line up at least from line
Yeah.
to line, and then in fact that outer for loop would probably be like the random number -1, because the last one's always going to be five green ones, so you don't even have to run through that loop. So if
Okay. So you would so you could actually just say only loop over X number of times, and then at the very end, you're always just going to append a row of green squares.
sure.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. 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 Okay. So then, yeah, like you said, it kind of does start with like different levels of complexity. So that you say originally, okay, I can just go white, yellow, or green, doesn't matter. And I'm just going to generate that and then go up from there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you wanted to say, yes, I'm going to carry through greens to the future ones, um, then you'd almost have to keep track of the previous set of solutions.
Yeah, just have like
Right.
an array 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 0 through 5, and then just set that value in there. And so when you're iterating through the inner for loop, if the value is already set as a green square in that state map,
In the
that zero through
previous row.
in the map, yeah. Well, no, I would just have like a map of like correct guesses, which is just an array of zero.
Oh, okay. So you'd have a second array.
Mm-hmm.
Or okay, I see what you're saying. So you would end up having like another outside array that would be like correct guesses.
Yeah, it would just be like 0 index, 0 through 5, or 0 through
Okay,
4.
sure. It's completely separate array, just called correct guesses or something like that.
Yeah, so correct guesses is an array, 0 through 5, 0 through 4, sorry, and then just like true false switches essentially.
Yep.
And so
you have,
as you're going
as
through
soon
that
as I
inner
get a
for
correct
loop,
guess,
right?
Yeah, as soon as I get a correct guess on that one, yeah.
Yep. And so you just go like, does this thing map to true? If it does, then that's straight away a green square.
Interesting.
And that way you only have to do like every other, for in that inner for, you can go like, do I have a match in the map for this key? If I do, set it green, continue.
Interesting. I like that idea. That's pretty cool.
And yeah, and then you just basically fill in the gaps until you get to the end of that inner for loop, or the outer for loop for the number of guesses, which is, the random number you guessed at the start minus 1. And then the last one, you just, you could go one of two ways.
Because there's nothing to say that you don't actually get all greens before you get to the end.
Correct. If you have, and you've got to check that as well, I suppose. Like if you've already got 5 greens, then like you'd have to terminate early. If your random number of guesses is 6, there's no guarantee that you guess it after 6 as well. So then you have to do random
yeah, I
0,
guess like you would
1. Did you actually get it on the last one? And so the last one might be gray and 4 greens, or it could.
And that's fine because at the end, I mean, it does happen sometimes where you do get like, I mean, it could literally be you have 1 green and then at the last one you get all greens. I mean, it's possible, you know what I mean? But like you said, it might not look super realistic.
Correct. Like yesterday's word, I suppose we can talk about it historically because the word's different now.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yesterday's word was it wood? And so I had the first guess.
Could. COULD. Could.
Yeah. But I was like mold. And then I'm like, and then
I did that too.
Oh, you've got OULD. I'm like, oh, okay. So there's like 3 words in the English language that this could be.
Would, could, good, or mold. Yeah, that's great. I guessed all of them.
Yeah, I guessed all of them. I got it right on the third time. That's annoying.
Yeah, same. So so you have this idea where like outside loop, inside loop. I like this idea of your correct key, like where you're keeping track of the greens. Would you also keep track of the yellows and try and keep that number of yellows inside of the map? So you'd say like, okay, of the ones that are guessed here, I have to have like if I got a green and 2 yellows last time, I need to keep the green in the same place, but I need to have at least 2 yellows this time. You know what I mean? Or one of the yellows could get replaced by a green or something like that.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
You just continue to let it be random, right? So you could just go, well, what you might end up having is like, it would be weird if you had a green in the correct spot, which is fine, and then you had 2 yellows from the previous one, and then you had no yellows. That'd be odd, right? In the next one, you had 1 green and no yellows.
Not necessarily. Like you could just guess the completely wrong word. Oh no, yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true. That does.
You might guess the right word with the yellow. So I suppose maybe you do need to keep track of the yellows as well.
Like, so if you kept track of the yellow keys, you could say, okay, so with the correct keys, like, okay, green key, you're going to say like, put this in the same place next time. Right. And with the yellows, you're going to say, put, say at least this count of green or yellows or yellow, right? Because a yellow could get replaced with a green.
Yeah, correct.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then at the end you have to ensure that you get to the all green. So that gets you pretty close. I feel like you still end up with this sort of thing where you have to say you can't get all greens before you get to the end.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What else? What else can you think of? Um, I guess that's pretty much it. I think the novel idea that you have here that I did not think of at all is using a single key, like a single location, to keep track of the correct guesses
Mm.
outside of the loop. I didn't think about that. Like for me, I was trying to like look at the previous iteration, to look at it and inspect it
Yeah.
and then figure out what I
Yeah.
needed to do. Yeah. And actually here's the other thing that I did. Instead of building it up, I actually flipped it the other way. So I started with a green all, and then I start removing values. I start
Mm-hmm.
removing greens and going down from the green. And then at the end, I flip the array and then I
Mm-hmm.
print it out. So I say, start me off with all greens, and then I say, okay, um, what I do next is I say, look at the previous row. The max value I should be able to get is that, right? I shouldn't be able to go back from a um like I shouldn't be able to go from a you would never get a green and then go back to a yellow. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, unless you were tired
Like
and you made a
you
mistake.
right. So in doing that, what I had to say is like, okay, if I'm starting at green, the max I can get is green, but I can get down from there. And then if I
Mm-hmm.
get a yellow in a square, I say, okay, the max I can get is a yellow. I can't get a green in that spot later on because I'm gonna flip it around, right? So the progression ends up being like grays and then yellows and then greens. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them will be greens, but if I get a green, I end up getting a green in that spot always as well. What I did end up finding is that sometimes I would end up with like four greens and a yellow, which is impossible because if you have four greens and a yellow, that's five
Yeah.
greens.
Yeah.
Like you can't do that.
Yeah. No.
And so like there are some interesting nuanced things that I have to take care of. Um, but right now I can generate a solved puzzle for any number of guesses, right? So you can either put it in, you can say, 1 through 6, or I can just randomly generate it and it will give me a pretty good mix. Which actually, I should just run it real quick and show you what I get. Oh my gosh, that is a crazy one. Here, I'll send this through in the chat here. This one is actually a pretty interesting one. Like it builds up from the left all the way down. Let me see if I can get another one here. Another good one. So these, yeah, I feel like these look pretty legit actually. Like because the goal is just to be passable, right? Can I pass
Mm-hmm.
these off as good enough? Right? And they're actually I think they're getting mixed up a little because I'm here. Hold on, let me just say that one again. They're getting mixed up a little bit because I'm sending them through with like new line characters, but
Yeah.
they actually look pretty good. They look pretty good. So the problem is, I was hoping to like put this on GitHub pages and then just throw it out there for anybody to use. So it'd be like, hey, participate with your friends, but don't actually have to take the time to do it.
Yeah.
But I'd have to rewrite this in JavaScript, and I was just too lazy. I did it with Laravel and collections, and I'm like, okay, this is fine. And then I was like, oh, I should convert this to JavaScript so I can just run this on GitHub pages. And I was like, nah, I don't think so. That's not really. So it's actually it might be a cool challenge to kind of put the output out there for people to say, almost like a code golf.
Yeah.
Have you seen this before? Where like
Mm-hmm.
write a solver or not a solver, but write a random emoji generator for Wordle correct things, and it has to meet these requirements, right? Like if you have a green, you have to keep a green in the same space. So you can't have you have to end up with green. You have to be able to put in number 1 through 6 to
Mm-hmm.
generate a guess, and then how few lines can you do it in, right? That might be kind of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's fun. Like getting it to kind of work is pretty easy. Like just I just done it. I just done it. I just did it then. It's like 20 lines of code. And yeah, it's there. It's just a matter of the logic and how, because if you look at the output from this thing that's just doing random output, it's not good. But if you were to put a bit of thought into it in tracking like the correct guesses and things like that, making sure that you've always got the right letters and things like that, or the right guesses in the right places, then I think it'd certainly be an interesting challenge. It'd be a modern spin on something like the the Fubabaz or something that you could
Right.
use
Oh
as
yeah,
an
that's true.
interview
It'd be like
question.
a
You know,
katas or whatever, right?
yeah, a modern code cutter. So
Yeah.
it's
And
definitely
so
definitely interesting.
yeah, the other thing I did, which I thought was a lot easier to reason about, is I don't convert them to the emojis until the very end. I use numbers like
Just
3, 2,
numbers.
and 1.
Yeah,
3,
zero,
3
one, and two.
representing green, 2
Mm-hmm.
representing 2 representing yellow, and then 1 representing the white. And so then I can do like less than, greater than, equal to sort of checks throughout the generation of that matrix to
Mm-hmm.
determine where I'm at in the process. And kind of go from there. So I should show you my code though, because it is freaking nasty.
Let's have a look. Let's have a look at
It
this.
is so gross. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Oh, great. No. Well, it does. I'm on. Okay, let me just. I'll just share it through here. Um, I'll throw it into a gist real quick because yeah, it looks freaking horrible, but it's okay. We should put this in the show notes. This is my just very. I was just trying to get it written, so
Mm-hmm.
feel free to take a look at it. But yeah, basically what I have is at the very top, I have a map that maps 1, 2, and 3 to the white, yellow, or green emoji. Then I have a function called getNumber, and I put in there a weight and a max. So weight is the probability that you're going to get a green, right? So that's what weight means. And then max is the maximum number you can get. So like I said, like I'm starting with green and counting down. So if I have a green previously, I say the max you can get is 3. And then if it moved to a yellow at one point, I say, okay, the max you can get is a yellow now. So you can't get anything greater than a yellow, right? And then count down from there. And then I just have this weight generator that sort of gives me how probable it is that I'll get a green. Because otherwise, what you ended up with is end up these greens pretty quickly. If
Yeah.
the weight to getting a green is relatively good, you only have 3 numbers you're generating from, right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get like up to 6 guesses, you hit those greens so fast.
Yeah.
It looks unrealistic. So I have this get number generator, and then I have a number of moves, and then if the number of moves is 1, I just return a row of greens. Otherwise, I collect the range of the different 1 through however many moves you're going to do, and then I do a reduce. And the reason I had to do a reduce, I was starting with a map, but I had to do a reduce because I have to look at the previous version of what happened, right? Give me
Mm-hmm.
what was the last one that I had, so then I can inspect it and say, okay, the previous one was a green. You can get a green on this one, but you can't get anything more. Well, of course you can't get anything more than the green. But then as soon as it hits that yellow, okay, you can get a yellow, but nothing more. Okay, you can hit a white, but nothing more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I push those on and then get to the end. And then at the very end, I flip it. And then I do a string replace with those emojis and pop them in there. And then I put that Wordle and then the number that needs to go at the top. That's like Wordle 222, which I'm not sure it's what counting up from what date. I could figure it out pretty quick probably. And then it says that it says the number of moves. So if you put in 3, it says 3 out of 6, and then it puts your answer. So what would be cool is if you had like a thing that would just tweet out for you your Wordle of the day, which is like a random solution.
Random solution at a random time of day.
Exactly, random solution at a random time of the day. Or if you could have it like send to a particular text thread for you. That way I could just get out of this completely and I don't have to
There you
do
go.
it anymore.
Free SaaS idea. Wordle
Exactly. There you
as a
go. Yep.
service, a WAS.
I was thinking about that. Like if I just made this and then just said, "Hey Twilio," if somebody texts me and just says Wordle, I would just send back a solution to them for the day. Like, and then they just copy it and go paste it in all their places. Like, no big deal. Which it wouldn't have to be a text message, but I like the delivery of text messages for some reason. I don't know what's attractive about it to me. Do you ever find that? Like, I love the idea of doing like using text as an interface.
Text is cool. I know that JMac did a lot of that stuff with Laravel Shift. People would send him support requests, and if he was like out on the road, he could just send a text message into Laravel Shift
Oh, it's so
to
cool.
to like rerun a shift or whatever. And so
Mm-hmm.
it is a cool, rather than trying to open, if you're out somewhere, and rather than trying to open up a website on your phone and then scrolling and pinching to zoom and God knows what else, because for that kind of stuff, I would never build a, like, for then Ping Me, for example, we've got Nova, and like I'm pinching to zoom stuff there all the time from my phone,
Yeah.
just to check bits and pieces, like looking at stats and things like that every now and then when I'm bored. So yeah, that kind of thing I wouldn't build a responsive interface for, but having an SMS thing that goes like, go and do this thing. It's we at the job that I started, like after we came back from Laracon, when Ree came to New York in 2017, I think it was. That one we had I had just started the job there at the internet provider, and that was like when we had salespeople on the road, they could like send an address and it would come back and say, "Is this the address?" And you'd say yes, and then it would go and run a service qualification check so that you could tell, like, without having to expose the internal systems directly or without having to like fiddle around with it. You could just like send an address and say, "Please do this," and it would come back and run it for you and tell you like pass fail, and an indicative result. So that was, that kind of stuff's been around. Like we've had that for a long time. Even from my first ISP job, towards the end there, we did that kind of stuff where you would have a whitelist or an allow list of numbers that you can accept messages from, and you would put like SQ colon and then whatever the address, and it would come back and say, okay, this is what I need to do. And you'd use that as a way, because then we do different things on it. You could say SQ or you could say whatever else to run different things, and using that as a controller type function,
Yeah.
So
I think I love it because it's ubiquitous. It's like a browser in that
and if you don't need
everybody
to send
has
images or
one.
anything like that, yeah.
Right. Like
even
everybody has a
people that
browser
have
on their
got
phone. Everybody
old
has
phones.
SMS. Right. Everybody has SMS on their phone. And so you're also constrained with your inputs. So like I actually, I think constraints can sometimes be a really, really good thing because it like stops you from doing too much. So you only have this number of characters to put in. The other thing that I really like about it is when like I like the idea of using it for group communication. Okay, so here's like another idea that I had. So I don't know if you ever do this with people where you say like, hey, this is an example. This is not, maybe you do this, maybe you wouldn't, but you say like, hey, we're going to get up every day, 5 days of the week, Monday through Friday. We're going to get up at 5 a.m. and we're going to do our run, right? We're going to go run a mile. We're all going to commit to do this. Okay. Hey, group, team, rah, go team. We're going to do this, right? And we're going to hold each other accountable and we're going to do it. All right. So, maybe you start off texting each other and saying like, hey, I'm up. Like, are you guys up? Sort of deal. I think it'd be cool. And I feel like there was a service for this a while back where you could sort of invite people to a group and it would text them and it'd say, hey, Jake invited you to the 5 a.m. wake up group. Do you want to join? Yeah, sure. Okay, awesome. You're going to get a text message at 5 o'clock. You need to respond by 5:10 that you've started your run. And if you reply, then good. If not, I'll send you a reminder at 5:15. If you don't have your response in by 5:20, you don't get a green checkbox for the day. And everybody else that does gets it, right? So then what you end up with is at 5:20, it sends out a text to the people who are in the group that says, Michael, checkbox, Jake, checkbox, David Hempill, checkbox. And then the next day it's Michael, checkbox, Jake, checkbox, red X, David Hempel, checkbox, right? So like, oh crap, I missed one day for the week.
That's right.
Right. But like just that
Jake
super simple
would close
interface.
his eyes for 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what it is about me. Like that super simple interface is so appealing because I don't have to open a browser. It's just a text message and that's it. I don't have to ask anybody to install anything to get started. It just sends them a text message and they say yes. And then I get a text message the next day at 5 that says, have you started your run? Yes. Done. That's it. That's all you had to do.
It's super good as a confirmation.
No app
thing.
To install. Yeah.
I had to go to the doctor this week. And so, I booked it online. And then the day before, they send a thing. They send a text message, reply yes to say that you're still coming. When I take my car in for a service, your booking is on this date, reply yes. Even like we had the water filter that gets replaced once a year on our Pura tap, and they send a text
Mm-hmm.
message.
So
They're getting
nice.
the text messages are getting a bit longer now because they're like, if you've got COVID symptoms, you need to rebook and all of that kind of stuff that gets put in there. But
Yeah.
it's like it's all the same thing. And it's easy because they just put it into their thing that it gets sent out, and you just reply yes. And when they get a yes, um, then that gets done. We had that at when I was at Superloop as part of the cancellation process with our national broadband network. It's very easy to just like transfer between providers. There's no lock-in. Like you get a different retailer, but it's all the same wholesale network. So we get a notification from the wholesaler that says this customer has transferred to another provider. Um, we have to verify that. So then we SMS the customer and we say, hey, we see that you have transferred to another provider. Did you mean to do this? And they just reply back, yes. It gets a bit tricky because sometimes people will reply like, not yes. They'll say like, yes, but. And so as soon as they put the but in there, we've got to flag it for someone to review it manually because you can't,
Mm-hmm. Right.
like, because you need to know what the rest of that message was. Like,
Yeah.
but then you have to say like, yes in all caps, yes, all lowercase, yes with a capital Y,
Right.
all
You
these
just do a case
variations. Or you
insensitive.
just do a
Yeah.
case insensitive, like, trim string to lower, and then compare that
Yeah.
against
That's what we
yes.
do.
We did.
We also had to do CSI, like for our Spanish speaking
Oh, yeah.
people, because we have a lot of Spanish speaking people
Yep.
who we interact with. And so we had to do something like that too. Yeah.
I said just for like jokes, just for shits and giggles, put in like yes please, and we did actually have someone reply
That's
yes please one
hilarious.
time. So there's all these things. And then like if they replied yes, then we kicked off the process, which would go and close their account, finalize the account, let them know if they have any outstanding balance and all that. Like you have to pay by whatever date. And it just made the process really simple because if you've left, you don't want to have to call up. Like if you can sign up online, and this was a perennial argument, and it's pretty much the same at any provider really, is that you've got to call up. And
Yeah.
I get it from the business perspective because they're
Right.
always like, oh, we want to do retention. Like if someone wants to leave, we want to try and keep them by offering them a discount for 6 months or whatever. So there's always that argument. But like if you can sign up online, you should be able to leave online. That should be
That's fair.
that
Yeah.
But and so the business kept umming and ahhing about that. They wanted to do retention, they wanted to do this, and I'm like, well, yeah, but like people are just going to leave anyway. And then it's a hassle later, and you're just generating bad word of mouth because like the customer transfers, they think it's all done, and then suddenly they still get an invoice from us, because their other provider, instead of doing a transfer, they connected them on a spare port, so you can have depending on the connection type. If you've got fiber, you can have up to four services running simultaneously. So if you
Oh,
go to a
dang.
provider that doesn't do a transfer, they just spin up on a spare port, then all of a sudden, you've got a service that we don't know that you've cancelled, and so you're paying for two services. So all of that kind of stuff, and then you generate bad word of mouth. People are complaining, oh, I had to go and like try and get my last month invoice back. I paid for it, but then I didn't use it. And it took me a month to look at my credit card statement to realize I'd still been
Yeah.
charged and
Yeah.
things like that.
Exactly.
So,
Mm-hmm.
it's easier just to automate as much as you can, especially when the tooling is there. Like send an SMS, they reply, you close the account, done.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's
If
so
they're
many.
providing their phone number, as like a way to be communicated with, right? And that's
Right.
a good thing is like we can ask them, just ask them, how do you prefer to be communicated with? Text message or email or phone call? If it's text message, then dang, just
And like,
send them a text.
Yes, you can forge the SMS, but it's not like the average person is not going to be able to do that. It's easy to like use Twilio or Nextmail or whatever to send an SMS from a number. And like you can set that to whatever you want. Now, that's problematic. Like you'll find a provider that lets you set that to whatever you want, and then I can start sending text messages, to your wife from your phone number, and,
Yeah.
and it looks like it's coming from you. Back when I was in school, you'd have to get your hands on someone's phone, and you'd have to like go into their contacts and change. I did this before. You'd have to go and get their phone. You'd have to like go and get their girlfriend's contact and put the phone number in as your phone number, and then you start sending funny text messages. Whereas now it's like, sign up to this service, say this number, this call, this SMS came from this phone number, and then all kinds of shenanigans can
I feel
ensue.
like I used to do that. I feel like I used to be able to do that. Like I remember one time my buddy, we were going out to eat and we were in college, and my friend and his girlfriend were going with us, and I texted him from like one of those online,
Mm-hmm.
it was like VZ text, like for Verizon, but you could put in what number you were texting from. And so I put in her phone number and said like, "Hey, why don't you sit in the back? I'm going to sit up front with Jake tonight, like in the car." And I'm watching out the window. And he was sort of like the jealous type anyway. He got so mad. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. But I think there's got to be stuff blocking that by now, right? I mean, isn't
Well,
there stuff?
yeah, at my last job, we gave you the ability to do that kind of thing, but you had to verify the number. So you could say like, I want to
Ah,
send from
okay.
this random phone number, but we would then send we'd send the 6-digit confirmation code, and you'd have to confirm, just because to put that protection in place that you weren't going to go around forging
Sure.
things. So, but like that's up to the provider then to put that level of protection in
I
that
gotcha.
that
Yeah.
things aren't being done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if you wanted to specify like a word, because you can have up to I think 11 characters from memory. So you could say like it comes from Wilbur. But to do
Yeah.
that, we would review it to make sure that like it's legit. It looks like it's tied to a business and kind of thing. So you couldn't just arbitrarily like me sign up for an account and say, okay, I'm going to send all my text messages as Wilbur kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that is on the provider. I don't know if there's anything legislated that says you have to do that, but certainly up to the provider to put those protections in place. So at least they're not liable. If
Right.
you've got
Right.
something free that anyone could just sign up and then they can just do that. I mean, we had a lot of protections in place. We would validate, the business number. We'd make sure that like, we only supplied to Australia, so we'd make sure that you'd have a legitimate sort of Australian looking um, email address and all that kind of stuff. So, and then we would flag accounts that looked like high risk and things like that. So, it comes down to the provider whether or not they want to sort of protect themselves and protect their customers and protect like people that aren't their customers. Are you going to do the right thing by everyday people to protect them from being scammed by your company? You get a lot of it. We get phone scams that like people that are calling from Amazon or people that are like, we're calling from the Australian tax office because there's going to be litigation brought against your name for unpaid taxes and things like that. All of that kind of stuff happens, and it's like we had a big one recently that seems to have died down now, but it was you'd get a text message every day or twice a day or whatever, just a random like your shipment from such and such is coming, like click this link kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Click this link. Yep.
And that was like going crazy, and like the biggest telco in Australia was like, well, we don't know what to do with it because it's like random numbers with random text that it wasn't a consistent kind of thing that you could regex or whatever. The URLs were always different, the phone numbers were always different. So,
Yeah.
but
They've got like
there's
they've got a lot of protections like that in the U.S. And so they're basically treating phone numbers that aren't verified, that are trying to do like sending as business stuff. They're flagging them as like number one. On the iPhone, they'd go to unknown numbers, and so it's kind of like, okay, that's that's your first notice that it's probably from something that you've not received anything from before. And then secondly, if you kind of have to like, if you're using a 7-digit phone number, a regular 7-digit phone number, you have to register as a business if you're going to be sending like repetitive text messages. Otherwise, they'll block you. So would that actually happen to us before we got our short code? But yeah, when we were sending using these regular 7-digit or 10-digit phone numbers, I guess, if we'd send the same text message more than a couple times, even with a different link, it would block us. It would start blocking them from these different carriers. So anyway, yeah, I love the idea of text as an interface. And so I might actually, that check-in app, like I said, like I feel like I had discovered something like that previously, but I recently was doing this with a friend not too long ago, and I was like, oh, I should bring that idea back up again. It's not going to be that hard.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be fun just to make it. It'd be pretty cool. So, well, my friend, it is. We are rounding the corner on an hour here. We're at about 50 minutes. Anything else you want to talk about real quick before we kind of wrap this one up?
I'm just excited to be back in Laravel.
Oh,
I
dude,
just
I
want to
bet
get
you
that out
are.
there.
Yes.
And it's fun because I'm like in an older app that needs some TLC in different areas. I'm coming across things that I can put some content together for, which is nice. I did
That is
the
nice. Yeah.
I did the testing or simulating production video last week, which seemed to be well received.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
mean, I didn't get much feedback, but I got quite a number of views on it and things like that. I've got another video that I'll try and get recorded tomorrow on cyclic factories. Like when you've got
Yes, I need that one. I need that
it's
video.
such a horrible thing because it's
It's
not
a really hard
obvious.
place. Where do you draw the line on that?
Yeah.
Where so define for us what you're talking about with cyclic factories, because I was in the chat, so I know what you're talking about. But
Mm-hmm.
tell the folks what you're talking about here.
Well, it's a trap that I've fallen into before, where
And
you've got
specifically, we're talking about database factories here. Sorry,
database
just to
factories,
clarify.
yeah, eloquent factories. So, you create a new table, you've got a model, and you've got a factory for a user, and then you decide that okay, well, this thing it's contrived, but you've got a post. The user has many posts, and you decide that like every time I create a user, I also want to create a post. So you put in your configure method like this after creating user, go and attach a post, and then you do the post factory, which is fine until you start adding tests for your posts. And then you say, like, every time I create a post, it also needs to have an owner. So you've got, like, in your definition for the post, you say, return title is faker sentence, body is faker paragraph, and user ID is factory user. And so now you're you're writing your tests for your post class, making sure that your post index creates or whatever, and you say, all right, I'm going to create a post. So the post goes, yep, no worries, I'll do that. The post then needs to create a user, so it goes to create the user, runs the user factory, and then it says, oh, the user factory, because it's got the after creating thing in there, wants to create a post. So the user then goes to create a post, and the post goes to create a user, and the user goes to create a post, and this keeps happening backwards and forwards until you run out of memory and you end up with a segmentation fault. Now, in a new application, it's probably more obvious because you've just like my tests were working and now I've added this new test and now it's not working. So you've got a smaller surface area to check. But when in an older application, especially if it's an application that you're coming into for the first time, like I am, it's just a big test suite or something's happening in there and you don't know what it is. And so you don't realize, and so what is the segmentation fault?
Right.
So I'm just putting
Now
together
you
a
have to
video
really
to
do
kind
some
of like,
digging to
yeah. So I suppose this video is more around like this is the trap you might fall into, and like looking at the Laravel documentation, I don't know that you would following the docs fall into that trap, necessarily. Like it doesn't really say to do that anywhere from what I saw when I was skimming through it earlier. But if it's a natural thing if you're coming from an older version of Laravel where like creating a user, and then if you wanted to like link it to a post, or if you're creating a post and you wanted to link it to a user, you would pass that as like user underscore ID arrow, fat arrow is factory or post : factory or user : factory, sorry, and then it would go and do that thing. So I think now it's more around using the dynamic method names where you go, user : factory arrow has post, and then you pass that a post factory, and then that all gets linked up that way. And so this is more around like don't do this kind of thing. And I don't think there's really a good reason to use after creating for that kind of thing, just because of the recursive loops that you can find yourself in pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
it's
That's exciting.
it's a
I'm
small
excited.
problem, but it's
I'm looking forward to that one. That video sounds good. Yeah.
And I've got my confused face.
I saw that.
My confused face.
Who made that for you again? Aaron
That was
Francis,
Aaron
you said?
Francis. Yeah, we were because
Francis.
I think Justin Jackson was talking about like he spent 2 hours like trying to take the confused face YouTube thumbnail photo for a video that he was making, and I'm like, it's this face, and then Aaron's like, yeah, it's this, and then he's photoshopped it onto the video I put out last week, and so we had good joke about that. But yeah, I'll
That's so funny.
probably
Yeah.
use that. But yeah, hopefully I'll get that video out Monday.
Nice.
It's been I know that like to make sure that people see the content, you have to keep tweeting about it, and it's weird to tweet about it, but I think Twitter's like scheduled posts make it a bit nicer because you just like schedule a week's worth of posts, and it's like I'm doing this thing. Hey, don't forget this thing. By the way, if you missed it, like, because you got to hit the different time zones, and like the Europeans
Yeah.
are seeing things at
Yeah. It
different
gets,
times to the US. So
yep.
it's like the same tweet over and over again, but different people see it at different times. And so I
Otherwise, it
think,
just gets swept under the rug. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so it was like, heaps of posts on like Sunday, Monday, just to say like this is coming, and then a few tweets on Monday saying it's here in case you missed it, by the way, and then some like organic retweets, like me just going, oh yeah, this tweet came out, so I should probably retweet that sometime later when I wake up or tomorrow morning or whatever. And then like a few days later, in case you missed it. And by the way, by Friday, it's like everyone's, and like you hear about it all the time, and it still feels weird to just constantly keep posting the same thing over and over again. But if you want to get some traction for it, then
Yeah, it's kind of a necessity. Yeah,
is.
you just got to try and find a way to do it without being obnoxious. But it's like it's tough. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I feel like you have a good balance. It's fine. I didn't think it was too much, so you're good.
Excellent. All right, I think we should wrap it up. I haven't heard any screaming, which is unusual.
That is unusual. Usually it's like, oh, I gotta go, gotta run.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, this is episode 111. Thanks so much for hanging out with this. You can find show notes of this episode at north-south.audio/111. Hit us up on Twitter at Jacob Bennett, at Michael Dorinda, or at North South Audio. And if you like the episode, feel free to rate us up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be much appreciated. Thank you everyone so much. Shout out to all those people who are out there working hard every day, making the magic, and doing your thing. All right, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye.